Okay, hopefully that's better now. I think I've figured out what I did wrong. It's the amount of practice, you see. It's at least a week since I did a stream. So let me know if you can hear me all right now. Should be able to, I think. Sorry about this. Just taking a minute to get the chat up as well. Thank you, Alison. Yes, good sound. So if you can't hear me now, me saying this is not going to make any difference, but it's something at your end and not mine. So I'll start again. Welcome to today's stream. So I was just saying, here I am again, in my lovely studio in the heart of the Cotswolds, in the English countryside. And it's a beautiful, breezy, bright spring day today. And I'm going to be painting these little primroses, which grow in the garden just out there and I can see from my window. And they kind of encapsulate spring to me. And if you follow me at all, you probably know that quite a lot of the paintings that I do have been going a little bit more atmospheric and moody and perhaps a little bit more esoteric lately, a little bit. And there's something about the day and the freshness of the colours of the flowers that just made me want to go back to something that I used to do an awful lot, which is do live streams and also do more direct paintings of flowers. Okay, let me show you around the studio quickly before we start. Let's see if I can bring this to life a little bit. Will it work? You can see a bit of the studio. It's gone a bit funny. Oh, here we go. I think we're all right. Let's see if I can. So there is what's happening on the easel at the moment. And here is a shot of the studio. Oh, and here is Banjo, the studio cat, who of course has just woken up because I'm about to start streaming. Until a moment ago, he was parked over here in front of the fire, which is his favourite spot. And this is making beeping noises at me, so I don't know if I've got it right. So you can see I've stuck a board up in the window. Hopefully the sun is going to stay away. Here are the primroses. So I've taken a photo of them to work from for the stream. And here is what's happening with them at the moment. I'm gonna turn this off because it's beeping at me like I must be doing something wrong. That's the other window over there. Let me turn this off. I'll go, whoa! Oh, I didn't think that was going to happen so quick. As you can see, I haven't got any better at using the gimbal. But hopefully what you can now see... What do you want out, little man? All right, you go and grab some food or something then. At least if he's going out, he's not climbing up my leg like he was last time. Banjo, off he goes. So, yeah, that is a little bit blown out. The sunlight might be a bit of a problem today. I've got another panel that I can put up in the window and try and stop it. So just a relaxing painting stream today. What I've done so far on this is I've put a thin layer of oil on it with a little bit of solvent mixed with it, and I have then scrubbed on a kind of a low chroma, not quite a neutral, but it's like ivory black and raw umber and lead white mixed, just to give me something to work on. And then I've started to wipe out bit by bit the main shapes of the flowers, so that when I go to paint them on, what I put on the panel hopefully won't mix too much with this kind of background colour that I put on there. So I'm just roughing things out. A lot of this I've done with a paint shaper, which is this, like it has a little silicone rubber thing on the end. But I'm still at the kind of laying in and figuring out where everything is going to go stage. So this works really well for taking out like a lot of paint and making sharp edges like that, you know, which I can then soften if I want to with this soft brush just by dragging over a little bit. So you can actually get an awful lot of variety in the marks this way. And some of them will survive, you know, to the end of the painting, and some of them will just disappear. But I'm just bringing out some light shapes to figure out where things are going to go. Hi, Michelle, good to see you. I really need to catch up with you. Michelle, if anybody doesn't know, has now put out an app version of her Chroma Magic software, which is pretty amazing and allows you to check areas of images and see, and it gives you like the closest Munsell color. And even if you to that area, and even if you don't use Munsell, it's very useful because it shows you color swatches, which you can then mix to. But the new one's got loads of new stuff in it, hasn't it, Michelle? That I haven't had a chance to play with it yet because I've been away. And I'm actually, what I've been away doing is I don't know if they have them in the US, but it's what we call in the UK a long distance trial. So I rode a motorbike for 24 hours through the countryside, following a written navigation road book, they call it, which was interspersed with tricky uphill off-road sections, which I had to try and get up without putting a foot down. And if you get up without putting a foot down, that's called a clean. And then if you get through all of the sections without putting any feet down, you get a gold medal. I didn't manage that. And the reason I'm having to hold up my right arm with my left arm at the moment to keep it steady is because I fell off my bike and I bashed up my shoulder, my right shoulder. And it's actually making painting a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be honest. So I can't hold my right arm up by under its own power at the moment. It's making things a little bit complicated. But you know, we'll soldier on. My marks may be a little less exact than I would like them to be at the moment. So some of this I'm going to do like with this paint shaper, and then some of it I'm just going to wipe out. Mostly, at the moment, I'm just kind of squinting down and looking for shapes. I'm not really thinking about making form or what something is. I'm kind of compositionally just trying to find the shapes. And then when I feel like I'm somewhere near, I will start putting some colour on. But the colour that I've chosen for the kind of the underpainting, if you like, is fairly close to the colour that I would want generally in the background anyway. So this process is fairly slow because I want to try and make sure that I don't put anything in there wildly in the wrong place. I need to decide how I'm going to deal with the vase. Probably just suggest it a little bit and not do too much of it at the beginning. Just get a rough idea of where it is. Don't know how long I'm going to be on today. Maybe an hour or so. I think, to be honest with you, I think a lot of it is going to depend on how my arm holds up. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I just really wanted to paint some primroses today. Come on then, little man, are you coming in? Come on. No, come on. I'm not coming out. Come on. Good lad. Yeah. I know. He's looking dangerously like he might start trying to climb up my leg in a minute. Got a nice stem there. Hi, Kathy, good to see you. Oh, Colette says, I'm using it on my map. Very cool. Can't post a link to the app. Hang on a minute. Well, I can post a link to Chroma Magic. Where the app is. I hope I can anyway. Let's see. Did that work? Did it work? Can't post messages to some channel. I don't know what that's on about. I don't think that worked. Oh yeah, it did work. Oh, it said it came from restream.io. That's actually me. Restream is the software that I stream to that lets me send a stream to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. So I'm just squinting and looking at the light and dark shapes and seeing where I am. I know I want to kind of a dark greenish. I have to be careful though, it's probably much closer to brown than I think. So I'm just thinking about where the dark shadows are at the bottom of the vase. So I'm just trying to kind of plan the painting out really and try and make sure that everything ends up in the right place at the moment. So for a dark greenish colour down the bottom of the vase, there's a little bowl of the vase. Do you want to know what I've got on the palette? It'd probably be a good idea to tell you, wouldn't it? I have got, I'll take you through it. Let me switch over to the palette so you can, I can show you more clearly what I've got on here. So we've got lead white. This is bright yellow lake. These are all Michael Harding colours, by the way. Bright yellow lake, which is an arylide yellow, a little bit like Hansa yellow, but higher chroma, green yellow. more orange yellow, that's cadmium yellow. This is green gold, transparent red oxide, raw umber, and ivory black, which all together should give me a wide enough range to hit most of what I want, I think. Let's try putting in some of this darker value where the bottom of the vase is. We've got a shadow goes off to the left. So yeah, like I say, I'm just trying to think really in shapes at the moment and trying to make the brush strokes kind of reasonably interesting. And I'm not trying to really paint anything so that it looks real yet. I'm just trying to lay things out in the right area, in the right place. Thinking about the background a little bit now. Because when I put the colour, I start putting some colours down for the primroses, I want to know how they're going to look in the painting rather than just put them down and then think they're right and then try and match other things to them, which is unlikely to give me as good a result. Ow. Oh, palette knife painting is hard with a gammy shoulder. Apparently. Quite a lot of it is going to need to go a bit darker than this, especially in the right-hand side, sorry, in the background. Like around here, but I don't want to really get into doing like a really careful division of where the background and the background and the kind of the table surface meet. Because I don't want to tie myself down too much yet. I'll show you what paint shaper is good for. I probably don't want the highlight on the vase to be quite as obvious as it is. In the reference photo, but you can do it really, really easily with the paint shaper like that. Just pulls all of the paint back with a really hard edge. A little bit too hard at the moment. feel like putting some colour down now for the flowers. Oh, sorry, I'm forgetting to keep up with the chat. A snowstorm, Kathy. Oh, wow. That sounds a bit severe. We have had some snow around here, but we're not getting very much these days. Not as much as we used to. Gingy says it's all so light, it must be difficult to find the darks. Not too bad at the moment because I've got enough, I think, on the panel to be able to see kind of where things are going to go. I'm just putting in rough shapes really at the moment is all I'm looking for. So I'm not bothered about whether these darks that I'm putting in are right, in inverted commas, if they're perfect and in the right place or the right colour. I just want to get something in there so I can see, where they're going to go. And once the flowers are done, I might not even need to paint the vase at all and just leave it suggested. We don't know really. Oh, hi Logan, sorry she's got to go. This is actually quite a new vase. I've got one very like this, but this is a different one. It's a smaller one. I love these round ones. In the flowers, yeah, maybe, yeah. Colette says, how big is this board? It's an 8 by 10 inch. Can we download the photo? Yes, you can. I'll pop a link in the chat box. And you can click on the link and then you can just right click and download it. I think that only works if you're on YouTube though. It'll come up as restream.io, I think, and not as me. But that's the photo. Oh, and it does come up as me. We've got some sun coming in, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the camera too badly at the moment. So I want to, although normally I would probably go for the yellow because it's the predominant color, I feel like I want to put the purple in, mostly because I think putting the yellow in isn't really going to change things all that much. And putting the purple in definitely will. So I know, I haven't got anything out there on the palette, so let's get out some quinacridone rose. I think I probably want to go a little bit more blue and a little bit lower value, so I'm going to stick some dioxazine purple next to it as well. I'm not too bothered about the hue, but I want to be able to get a lot of chroma at a low value. That will probably be fine. I messed up my palette already, look. This is where I want to start colour mixing, and I've already got these colours in the way. So to get this colour, the purple of those flowers, I mean, I've got the actual flowers here next to me because I only just picked them like a couple of hours ago. So I'm looking to get something that's going to be fairly close to the local colour of the actual flowers, just eyeballing them really. So that's quinacridone rose with a little bit of dioxazine purple. I mean, you've got to know your paints really and know what they're going to create. It's obviously is very, let's have a lighter version too. It's very transparent colour because both of these are transparent. And actually where it goes into the shadow, it's going to be a little bit more, it's going to go more towards red. So I'll put some transparent red oxide in, which will pull it in the red direction. Let me see if I can show you this. I'm going to have another attempt with my gimbal. I'm struggling on with this thing because I think it might actually be a really useful thing for streams if I can just get used to it and get it to work right. Banjo sitting in the sun. Let's see if I can do it. So here are the actual flowers. Here is my mix. Let's get a little bit of this on the palette knife. The complicated thing about it is the flowers have kind of, they've just for some reason just the purple ones, but they've wilted. I wonder if I can just take one off, stick it on the palette, and that will make it easier to think about the colour I'm getting. Can you hear that noise? This gimbal thing is making a funny noise at me. Come on, turn around. No, other way. It might be complaining because my phone is too heavy, maybe. So I ought to be able to, it's obviously too dark, so I ought to be able to put a bit of white in it without losing the chroma too much, because this is quinacridone rose. It's in the general area, you know, with a little bit of white in was actually quite close. How close can I get that to go? Fairly close. So, you know, that's not bad for a colour that's in the light parts of it. Like, that's the local, so the lighter parts of this will probably be something like that. It really is complaining at me, this gimbal. It doesn't like all this moving around at all. The only annoying thing is then I've got to walk back over to my PC so that I can actually switch it off. So once I get a bit more used to that, I think it will be quite useful for showing colour mixes. The only problem is it means I've got to use one hand to hold it, so it's a little bit, I'm juggling a little bit. Did you get the link for the photo, by the way? Yeah. Julie says, I'm amazed at how loose you start. Yes, I guess it's something that I've tried to deliberately evolve, because I like to have paintings where, especially if they're kind of alla prima or, you know, relatively direct like this, where there's a lot of expressive brushstrokes underneath and then just a few areas that are more carefully finished. I like that kind of, that balance, you know. There's actually there's not all that much of these lovely little purpley ones. So I'm looking for the light colours, the light areas. And I'm going to wipe it out first, because I don't want this to be too muddied by that colour that I put in the background. So just underneath there, just underneath this one about the middle, that's the light, that's the yellow flower there, just underneath there, there's a petal of just a spot of purple, so I'll wipe that out first. And hopefully this will bring like quite a lot of chroma into it. Oh yeah. And the shadow side goes a little bit more toward red and a little bit darker. Again, I'm just trying to think in terms of shapes at the moment. I am thinking about light and shadow now, because I have to, you know, to try and get the colours. Which bit is light and which bit is shadow, you know, I want to try and get that right. I'm not that bothered about perfect accuracy of the drawing as long as I can make the form work. Doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect replica. Beautiful colour. And I think, you know, when you're at the beginning of a painting like this, you just got to trust that eventually it's going to come together, and not try to rush. I think that's really important. Not try to rush to panic and try and get everything down and think, well, you know, I've got to make sure that this looks like a flower. It's not really the job at the moment. The job is just to get the big picture working. Olaf, good to see you. Heather says, that petal sings against the backdrop. Yeah, I mean, that chroma-wise, I haven't checked this, you know, against a Munsell thing, but we must be like 12. It's high chroma. But I'm just putting colour notes at the moment. I'm not, you know, this is a very different kind of painting than, say, even than the painting that I've been doing myself and teaching lately, which is, you know, kind of more, well, I say more careful. I've been attacking the paintings with sandpaper and steel wool and all sorts. But it's probably fair to say that a lot of the time the drawing is quite careful. This, I'm just putting really colour notes down more than anything else. Just trying to get an impression of the whole and how it's going to work, and then I can kind of refine it a little bit afterwards. Kind of tempted to put some of the yellow in there in the middle. Shall I try and do the gimbal thing again, or is it too annoying to show you me testing the actual colour against these flowers? Maybe if I just, it's awkward because I can only do it like I can only do it one-handed. So I'm thinking about that yellow colour in there. It's more green than cad yellow, which I've got there. It's lower chroma than that, so I'm going to put some white in it. A little bit of raw umber. Bring the chroma down. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it really, and in the middle it's a little bit more orange, but it's also dark, and the chroma doesn't go up too much. So I'm literally just putting the colours together on here and looking at the flower at the same time and trying to get them looking similar. And it, you know, I mean, there's no reason why I couldn't punch the chroma a little bit if I wanted to here, but I'm not sure if I'm going to want to yet. So we'll see. Get a small brush. So mostly at the moment I'm using, I mean, these are my favorite flower brushes. They're Rosemary's Angled Eclipses. They make petal shapes really well, so they're very good for this kind of painting. Do the gimbal. The thing is, I've got to walk right across the studio and go and pick it up. It means I can show you it really closely, though. That's That's the advantage. I can show you much more closely what I'm doing. Let's try. I'll just try one more time. What I need is a way to be able to switch it on and off, like on the stream. Without having to walk across the room to do it. At least you get a shot of my studio every time though, right? Let's bring it over to the palette. So hopefully you can see there. You see the colours in the middle of the flower. So I've got the darker colour here that I'm trying to mix. So that was, I used the light colour and then I put in a little bit of TRO, a little bit of raw umber in it to make it darker. And the light colour around the outside here that's mostly cadmium yellow. It was too orange, so I put a little bit of green gold in it and then a little bit of white. That also dropped the chroma and made that work a little bit better. So it's a really good practice, especially I find, especially doing flowers, you know, I've been doing this for years, is it really helps if you, oh, don't do that. Swinging about. It really helps if you just get the actual flower there, even if you don't do any kind of Munsell stuff. If you just get the actual flower there on the palette, you know, so that you can check the actual colors. You know, even if it's just close to it, so you can, you know, it's just a really good sanity check to see if you're getting anywhere near or not. Not much of these yellows are very strong. Only where it comes into the light, like around this area here, there's one little shock of brighter yellow there. And I think a lot of, I mean, you know, I thought it would be nice to be talking about the color mixing as well today, because a lot of the what makes these colors work, and you know, the attraction to painting them is just the color. And I find a lot of the time with these colors, if you get a good light color and a good shadow color mixed, and then you can move between them, mix between them, you can get a really good range. And I'm happy with where they're sitting. Those colors are sitting on the panel. I think they're looking nice. So I'm going to just, sorry, I'm probably in front of the camera at the moment, because I'm going to show you doing this again, right? I'm going to try and do some more gimbal and one-handed mixing. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll just have to go. What I can probably do though is switch to the palette as well at the same time. And let's see if this will work. Hopefully it will work. Whoa, the gimbal just went a bit weird. I need to read the manual. You know, I'm not much of a manual person. I just kind of get things out and start playing with them. I love playing with tech, but I'm not very disciplined, to be fair. And I should be a little bit more careful. Here we are at the palette. No, other way. So this is the color that I want now. I want to put some of these those light colors in there, you know, so that's a lot greener than you think, that yellow. So I'm going to get some, it's also not that high chroma. I'm going to get some of my arrowlight yellow, but I'm going to add a little bit of green gold to it, because I think it's going to be greener than that, a little bit. And then I'm going to add quite a bit of white, and that's going to raise the value, and it's going to drop the chroma. Still, you can see the chroma is too high, right? My yellow is much more intense. Not quite light enough. A bit more white. Oh, wrong way, sorry. No, that's close. You know, and I'm happy with that. It's you know, you don't need for something like this, if you've got the flower on the palette, you don't need a Munsell chip to tell you if that's close or not. If you've got something like the right color, you know, you can just eyeball it and see. The big advantage with doing it with Munsell and learning that way, I've just spoiled that color by, I don't know if you can see that, I've turned it slightly pink by getting some a little bit of quinacridone rose in it. So here is another lesson. There was a time when I would just have gone ahead with that and thought, oh, that's annoying, but never mind, I'll paint with it anyway. I wouldn't these days. I'd start again, bin it and start again. I've got some pink in it. That's the last thing I want, you know. A bit of green gold, grab a load of white. So that's Arylage yellow, that's the bright yellow lake with green gold and lead white. Again, I need more white. Chroma is a little high. Does it help this, by the way? Let me know if it's useful, being able to see the mix this closely. You know, you can put it right up against the flower and see how close you are. That's, you know, that's a pretty good mix. The thing about Munsell is it's helped me, doing an awful lot of work with Munsell over the years has given me a kind of a mental model, if you like, of the color space of paint. What we can mix with paint. So I know if I look at a color now, I can almost always decide very quickly, without really thinking about it, what tube colors I'm going to need to match it. Occasionally I'm wrong still, but not often. It's a good job I got a photo of these flowers, isn't it? I'd be screwed. I'm going to get a fresh brush out. Another one of these angled eclipses. Let's get back onto the painting. So what I'm trying to show you is I guess is process, as well as, you know, I'm not really, if I'm doing a live stream, I'm not terribly interested in just doing something that looks impressive. I want you to hopefully be able to take something useful. So I'm going to be putting this on reasonably thick, looking at light shapes more than anything else. So I'm putting this one on first because it's right up next to the purple that I've already put down, so I get to see those two together. Just the lights I'm putting in at the moment, just the lightest parts that I can see. Just getting some colour into those. And then I will mix the shadow colour and I'll start putting that in. But the underpainting colour is kind of, just bringing the exposure of the camera down a bit because it's got a bit light. The underpainting colour is sort of working as a shadow colour at the moment, so I don't have to worry too much about that. I do have quite a bit of sun coming in now. I might have to put up a panel in the window. Let's go, I want to go down a bit lower in the background around there so I can see the value around here wants to be really about as close as the shadow area of the purple flowers. And the yellow is not going to sing out quite as well as it should unless I've got some darker values in here. I mean, this is about arranging the space as well and trying to see how the painting is going to work as it starts to take shape. What little fella? I'm just not looking after you, am I? It's terrible. He's not impressed with me at all. Probably, how long am I going to be on this painting? I'm in a while. I think probably more than one session. Having to hold my arm up with my other arm to paint is definitely slowing me down. So it's probably going to be, I thought I might do it in one, but it's probably going to be a 2-session painting because I think I'll get most of the colours in today and I'll be reasonably happy with that. I'm going to have a go at getting that inner colour because it's very distinctive. That's cad yellow. I mean, there's the yellow, the more orange yellow on the inside. I think cad yellow and TRO will get me there. Transparent red oxide, yes, it certainly will. So I'm after really just like a visual. I don't think match is exactly the right word, but I want to have a good impression of the colours as they are. I think the colour that I've got there is probably not too bad for the middle. I need a darker colour, like a shadow colour for this bright yellow as well. And add a bit more TRO, but that on its own is going to raise the chroma too much, so I'm going to put a little bit of raw umber in there as well to get a more of a shadow colour. I'm sorry, little man, I promise I'll spend some time with you soon. Just try and make sure I get it in the right place. So that flower is starting to appear. It's like that's kind of like the main, I feel like that's the main flower really. Primroses, Susan, yeah. The palette cam, okay, that's cool. Prefer the palette cam to me messing about with the gimbal. If I get a bit better with it, maybe it'll be useful. Shadow colour of the light petals. Already quite low chroma, so the value isn't going to be too low. I'm going to bring in a little bit of green gold, a little bit of raw umber. I want to be, if I'm about a value 9 in the lights, this is a very light local, so the shadow colour isn't going to be dark. It would be very easy to make the shadows too dark. I don't want them to be any darker than, let's say, about a value 7. That's about a 7. I can go a little bit lower. The other thing about putting raw umber in is that like I wouldn't use burnt umber here because burnt umber is too orange, because I'm dealing with what's basically a green-yellow local. And get this down to about value 7. I'm assuming that's going to be about right. Now, where do I want those shadow colours? A lot of this petal here is in shadow. This is interesting because there's a shadow area there and then it gets light again as it goes towards the middle. So where the light and the shadow come shows how the form is turning. You know, where it's facing the light more and where it's turning away from the light. So I put them in like as blocks like that, like a light block with a shadow block in it, and then just tease it out and soften it. Try and get that gentleness. And then if the shapes have moved too much, sort them out again, paint back into it and keep adjusting until it looks right. I'm not so much bothered about it looking exactly the same as the photo, as long as I can see the form, I can feel light and shadow. When that happens, you can feel it. It's almost like, you know, the light and the shadow starts to appear. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, I don't think anyway, like a perfect rendition of what's in the photo. And a lot of the time, I think if you try to create a really perfect rendition of what's in the photo, it can make it a less strong painting. Let's bring some of that light grey background right up to that. Just building it up like a jigsaw puzzle. A lot of the kind of the enjoyment and the joy of painting these flowers comes from just spending time with these colours, for me. I have another colour flower that I haven't put in yet, which is the very low chroma, very light ones. Oh, Faye says, could you photo the primroses again in a few days, or will they wilt and die? Well, I mean, I've already been pulling a couple of them out of my setup in order to match the colours. Some of them have already wilted. Some of them will survive. Primroses, they're very gentle flowers. They're very delicate, and they tend not to last very long, you know. Benjamin says, have you ever tried the Zorn palette? No, I mean, it's just a limited palette, you know. And the Zorn palette, in any case, I would be on the hiding to nothing if I was trying to paint this with a Zorn palette. There would be no way. I couldn't get the yellows and I couldn't get the purples. I mean, obviously, for portraits, it will get you the range you need in order to paint flesh. But if you look, I would encourage you to have a look online. Just go to Google image search and put in Zorn, get his paintings up. There are very, very few of them you could possibly say that he could have done with that palette, if any. I suspect that it's personally, obviously I don't want to start an argument or anything, but I suspect the Zorn palette is a myth. I think it's something that he used in a painting, and everyone has therefore assumed that that's proof that that's the palette that he used, even though it's quite obvious when you look at the paintings that he was using other colours as well. It could be that that was the palette he used for that one particular painting, the one that it's in. But that's certainly nowhere near proof that that's the palette that he used for everything else. I don't think it's a bad palette at all. I've seen painters do really beautiful work with it. It doesn't matter as long as you get the results you want. I'm not saying it's a bad thing necessarily at all. But it has a very limited application. It can do that well, but I think you'll find pretty quickly you'll need to be thinking about adding some more colours if you want to. If you want to paint anything apart from just flesh. I think maybe one of the good things about it, one of the reasons that people like it so much, is it stops you making, or at least it makes it less likely that you're going to make some really, high chroma, awful mixes. And it is also surprising what you can get out of limited palettes like that if you know what you're doing. But I personally, my own way of looking at these things is, why would you want to limit yourself if there are colors that you can mix more easily with something else? It's the end result I'm interested in, not, I don't paint, I'm not Zorn. I'm not under Zorn. I'm never going to be under Zorn, I'd rather be using a palette that lets me get what I want and what I need out of the paint. I tend to put, my approach to palettes is basically I put out what I think I'm going to need in order to paint whatever it is I happen to be painting at the time. So like I've got no blues out here on the palette because there's no blue in the subject. Again, that's just my approach. It's just, there are people that make incredibly beautiful work by putting out the same palette every time, a really full palette of lots of different colors. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. I think it's not a good way to learn. And it's not always a good idea to emulate very skilled and experienced artists if you're a bit earlier on in your learning journey, because they'll be doing things that you will struggle to emulate. They'll have a lot more control and experience with their materials. I have, someone I know who uses you could probably call it an extended zone palette, and I think does the most drop dead beautiful paintings with it is Anastasia Pollard. And she also teaches with it. So I did a workshop with her. And the way she teaches it, I think, is brilliant, because she teaches it in such a way that it controls the colours that people can mix. So, you know, what happens a lot, one of the biggest problems you get with colour mixing, if you're not very experienced with it, is that the chroma, you'll end up with much too high chroma, much too intense colour. It's really, really common for that to happen. And if you do it with, if you went to one of Anastasia's workshops, she would show you how to use something that's based on that palette, the Zorn palette, in a way that will allow you to mix much better fleshed colours than you would normally do. And you will avoid a lot of the mistakes. You know, that in that situation where you've got someone who's very experienced with it, brilliant, you know, brilliant. I went on one of her workshops because I think she's a brilliant portrait painter, and I wanted to learn more about painting portraits. And I was not at all disappointed. She's a fantastic teacher. So it's not something that I would rule out. I think it's sometimes people get hold of ideas like that and almost kind of mythologize them. It's like the whole thing with the Barg prints as well. Like, you know, they get a kind of a mystique about them, and it's just materials and teaching aids. And, you know, if it gets you where you want to go, then great. You know, if it doesn't, then it's not helping you. You know what? I'm gonna have to stop now because my arm is just hurting too much, which is really frustrating, because I'm just starting to get to the point where it gets interesting and the painting starts to come together, and it's getting a little bit of life and depth about it, you know. But I am getting to the point where I'm in a fair amount of pain, and I don't think it's going to be a good idea for me to continue. We just get some of these too long, because I'm worried I'm gonna put my arm out even worse, and then it's going to take longer to get better, and it's going to be longer before I can paint again, which would be a bit rubbish. It is hard to stop though. I can just see it. It's just starting to come. So a lot of the time, like with this kind of painting, like if I'm trying to do something like more direct, I try to make the brush strokes create the form to an extent. Does that make sense? Like I try to put the brush strokes down in such a way as they, like for these petals, that they look kind of petal-like as soon as they go down. This little highlight is in the wrong place. It should be up there. There's my shadow brush. Shadow area here. Take that city highlight out that I put down wrong. Nearly there. We're coming. Starting to appear. Frederick says, have you ever considered painting left-handed until your arm heals? It would be like going back 30 years. You know, I'm properly right-handed. There's no way I could ever paint with my left. I just, no. I don't have the control. I really don't. Would be amusing. for everybody, apart from me. I don't think I would find it much fun. I have seen advice on the internet where people say about, a good way to loosen up. I have to laugh. A good way to loosen up your painting is to paint with your non-dominant hand. Well, yeah, it will loosen it up. That's for sure. It will do that. It will do that. And you also, you probably just make a complete mess. Your hand just won't go where you want it to go. Painting is about skill, to me. Ooh, let's get some of that shadow colour in there, because there's a lovely, lovely bit of subtlety where you've got the light here and then the shadow side of this flower. And it's mostly about the very slight colour changes, because the values are really close. I probably will overstate it just a tiny bit, but I want to get this shadow colour in. So I'm bringing the value down a little bit with the raw umber, just at the edge there. I just want the impression of that colour there. And then if I make the background slightly lighter, still very low chroma just around it, I can cut into it and make the shapes of the petals. And you kind of feel that that shadow side of that flower is there without it actually being clearly painted and stated. I like things like that. I want to get one more colour in, which is the very light flower, which is, I think it's roughly the same as the one I've already done, but lower chroma. I'm not just going to add white, because I think that will make it too, I want it to be roughly the same value. So I'm adding white and then a little bit of raw umber, tiny bit of green gold so it doesn't go too orange. Actually, just a little bit of black. I want to bring the value down without adding chroma. That's what I'm trying to do at the moment. And get the light petals in for this. It's almost white, but it's not quite. It's basically the same hue, pretty much, as the main flower in the middle, but it's lower chroma. Maybe it's too light. That's kind of pulling your eye a bit, isn't it, now? Have we gone a bit too far? And it must have a yellow in the inside, but the yellow has gone very green. Kind of orange. So if I can get them right, then the colours right, then they will go a long way to creating the impression of light and shadow by themselves. Sorry, I know I'm not really keeping up with comments at the moment. Interesting. Ow. I forgot. So I reckon the background probably wouldn't need an awful lot more work than that, you know. And just refining the flowers more would be enough. You know, the colours are good, I think, and refining the flowers would probably be enough to make the painting work. Just some careful drawing. The colours are definitely working, I think, in the flowers. They just need a bit more. But I think the value of that one I just put in is too high, so I'm going to knock the value down of these light bits. I don't know, I mean, it's probably about right, but I just feel like it's pulling too much. It's standing out a little bit too much. It doesn't feel like it sits with with everything else. Do you know what I mean? I like that more. Now it feels like it's pulling back and receding a little bit more behind this main flower. So what I do a lot of as well is putting a colour down and then wiping the brush and then pulling it into the colours that's around it to try and to soften it and make it sit right, you know. It's a bit dark. I'm just approaching the point where I can start to put in some of the details that's going to make the form work now. Not quite there yet, maybe, but we're just starting to get close. So I wouldn't bother painting all of these flowers carefully. They're kind of just as shapes, really. You know, I tend to find it if you have one area which is carefully painted and works really well, you know, like this flower at the front and maybe the ones around it would be strong enough, then your brain makes up the rest as long as it's you haven't painted anything that looks particularly wrong. Your brain will make the rest up. I think it needs about another hour or two, but I'm beginning to struggle a little bit. Just thinking about the highlight on the left side. I'm not sure what's making that colour happen there, but it's gone very blue-green. I'm going to bring in a little bit of phthalo green. This is Winsor and Newton Windsor green in that highlight. And see what happens if I paint that. Just don't want to push the chroma too high. A bit of raw umber, knock it back. A bit of black and raw umber, knock it back. And the value back up. Got pink in it. So I got pink next to my white and I didn't clean it up. Bad painter. Too light. Mm. So that's the light that travels through the little vase. So I've really enjoyed putting this painting together. I know that I've still got quite a bit of work to do on it, but I think I'm going to make a series. It's been so nice because a lot of what I do now, as I was saying before, is more involved, if you like. It takes longer and is multiple layers, and I love where that kind of painting is going. But there's also something really nice about just doing a painting in a single session, you know, just focused on the color and trying to make something which is, you know, just fresh and beautiful and something of the life of these flowers. Because spring makes me feel that way. Spring makes me feel positive, and you know, when you see everything growing again, one thing about living in the countryside is like you get the extremes of the seasons more. You know, the winter is it's pretty hard, and it seems to go on forever. And then when the spring comes, it's so wonderful. And it's been really nice I used to do a lot of paintings like this, and it's been really nice to kind of come back to this. And I think I might possibly have improved a bit in the meantime too. It needs work. It still needs some more doing to it before it's finished. But I've had an absolute blast painting this so far. I am going to have to leave it because it is getting a little wearing on my arm now. This light bit here is annoying me. It's like composition. You don't need it there. A little bit more form in some of the flowers, I think, here and there, you know, which I can easily do on a second session tomorrow when this is dried. Bring it out a little bit more, perhaps. I'm quite happy with the way all of this is very loose and vague at the moment. I'm happy with how that's gone. I love the colours. I think one of the reasons I've remembered now, one of the things that I love so much about Primroses is these deep, intense pinkish purples against these low chroma, high value yellows. You know, it just works so nicely compositionally. Yeah, Ginia says, I think it's the reflection of the window reflection. I think it could be. It could be, Ginia. I mean, it is definitely light from the window traveling through the glass, because there is actually a little bit of that color in this, as this bit of light here. I've got to make sure I don't make that too light. Where it comes through, you know, little light effects, really lovely if you can get them right. Don't overdo it, Paul. This is a big, soft, synthetic watercolor brush that I use a lot for softening things. Works really well. Mary says, what do you mean when you say lower chroma? I'll show you exactly what I mean. So this here is a page from the Munsell student book. So Munselites like myself think about colour in terms of value, which is light to dark. The hue, like these are all the same hue, greenish yellow. And chroma, you see these here are all the same value. If you squint down, they look very similar. But this is low chroma and this is high chroma. Same here. These are all the same value along this row. But this is very low chroma and this is very high chroma. They're the same hue and they're the same value, everything along here. But this is low chroma and that's high. So chroma is best thought of. You could use the word saturation, although that's slightly different. But without splitting hairs, it's basically the intensity of the colour. Mostly the intensity. Thank you, everybody. Diane De Silva, it's really good to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. Maureen says I should ice up my shoulder. I think you're probably right. Or maybe have a hot bath. Which is best? I don't know. One or the other. Paul. Hello, Paul. Richard Murdoch. Good to see you. Oh, God, you've just reminded me. I've got to get back to you. Listen, please don't think I haven't not got back to you for any other reason than I've just been ridiculously busy. But I have got your email and I will get back to you, Richard. Really good to see you. Colette says, I've signed up for several of your classes, but I have not really stated my interest yet. This lit a fire under me. Well, that's really good to hear. It was definitely worth me showing up today then, Colette. That's brilliant to hear. Thank you. Frederick says this is an excellent stopping point. Yeah, you know, but it's if I just did a little bit on the flower. I mean, it's probably gone about as far as it needs to go, but I want to do more on it. I just, you know, parts of it are bothering me because the form isn't there. I want that flower in the middle to sing out a bit more, but it's entirely possible that it could lose something. I wanted it to be like, I wanted it to be fresh, this painting, and also a kind of a step back to something that I used to do an awful lot more of, and I do enjoy immediate painting, you know, mixing the colour straight away that I want and then putting it down, sticking the flowers on the palette and then mixing the colours. I'll give you another quick shot of the palette so you can see what's been going on in the mixing. You know, like I've had the color, the flowers here right there, so I can check whether I'm getting the right one or not, the right color or not, get the local. It helps if you've got some knowledge about color mixing and the way that light and shadow work. So, you know, I know how to extrapolate the light and shadow colors from a local, and that takes a bit of learning, a bit of time to learn, an experience, you know. But I hope you enjoyed the session today. I really have. In fact, I'm not going to say anything too much at the moment, but I've just had an idea for something that I might do. I really want to paint some more of these. And there are spring flowers all over the place at the moment. We've got daffodils out here, tulips in the garden, crocus. The bluebells will be out. You know, it's a wonderful time of year to be painting flowers and to be doing nice, quick, like alla primas like this. So watch this space. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to say anything too much in case anyone holds me to it and I end up not having the time to do it. But I'm seriously thinking that it would be really lovely to do. You see, there's a concept I've been thinking about for a while that I call color stories. Like the story of the way that a local color moves from the local into the shadow and into the light. I think of that as the story of the color, how it moves, you know. And my head is spinning at the moment with thoughts of a color stories of the color story of spring in flowers. I've really enjoyed this session anyway, so I'm probably going to be doing some more. Oh, David, what a lovely thing to say. I'm not going to repeat that because you've embarrassed me. That's a lovely thing to say. Thank you. Rashan says, I took an online course from you years ago, mostly drawing basics. Oh, that would be probably, what would that have been? Creative Triggers. And it was all about habit. It was about evolving a drawing habit, wasn't it? If I remember right, I should remember because it was mine. But color story of spring. Who likes that idea? I'm hatching a plan. I'm hatching a plan. Oh, if you're on my email list, you'll hear about it probably pretty soon. Because when I get excited about things, I tend to put them together quite quickly. Anyway, thank you very much for coming, everybody. I've had a lovely time, and I hope you have as well. I'm going to stop the stream for now, but I will see you all again very soon. Thank you and bye.